Tia, ladies first, you were at tonight's Harris rally near Atlanta. Things felt intense. When I watched those speakers, you could feel that moment. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, so Vice President Harris went to one of the bluest parts of Georgia tonight. And yes, she brought out a lot of star power. So there was just a lot of energy. You know, people were excited to see entertainers like Bruce Springsteen and Tyler Perry, and they were just the warm-up act for former President Obama and, of course, Vice President Harris. So yes, there was a lot for the crowd to digest and a lot of energy. They say it's her biggest rally to date, 23,000 people.
When Bruce Springsteen is the warm-up act, you clearly ain't in Jersey anymore. Jeff, Harris is clearly leaning into celebrity endorsements, and Donald Trump is leaning into grievances. What is more likely to get voters out?
Well, I think that last part of your question is the key. What Vice President Harris is doing right now is kind of moving on from the persuasion phase that her campaign has been in for the last couple of weeks and moving to the get out the vote phase. And that means getting the base excited, getting people who have decided to vote for her mobilized and out there, and bringing big hitters like Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen and the other stars that were at that rally tonight as a way of exciting those voters and getting them to go to the polls, and getting them, particularly in Georgia and other states where early voting has started, to go ahead and vote right now, which was a message they kept hammering over and over again at that rally tonight, from Obama to Harris to the others. As far as how that compares with President Trump, former President Trump's grievance, I mean, President Trump is who he is. The grievance campaign, the grievance sort of emphasis that he has had for years resonates with some of his voters. So I'm not going to sit here and say that the one is better than the other in terms of turning people out. Whether or not it ends up resonating with the voters that both sides are trying to get, those remaining undecideds, those independent voters, and the people who are still on the fence, that's TBD, and that we're going to find out in a little over a week.
And that's the question, is getting people excited and fired up, especially hearing from some of their heroes and idols, or is it getting people scared and angry? What gets them out? Jon, talk to us about what's going on in the Sun Belt. What is your sense of how voters in Nevada see Donald Trump now? Are they buying his pitch?
Well, some of them are, Stephanie, that's for sure. Remember, Trump only lost this state by 2.5 points in the last two presidential elections. So he has a base here. There is definitely a MAGA following here. He's speaking right now to a very large crowd here in Las Vegas. So he has a following here. And the real question is the anger and grievance that you and Jeff were talking about. Remember, Nevada's economy was disproportionately crushed by COVID 4 years ago, and it hasn't fully recovered. Of course, there's been a lot of improvement, but there's a lot of people here who can't afford housing anymore, who are getting evicted, and who blame the most obvious person. This is what happens to all presidents, right? They get blamed for the person's lot in the economy, and so Trump has played into that anger and grievance, and he's going to continue to do that because basically, as you know, Stephanie, that's all he knows how to do.
Yes, but I'm remembering now it's why he did so well in 2016, because Nevada was disproportionately hurt by the financial crisis, right? But when the housing bubble burst, it hit Nevada hard, and so many people there hadn't recovered, and that's why they were open to Trump in 2016. So if they're struggling yet again coming out of COVID, it's the same message that they're willing to receive. Jeff, what do you make of the fact that these polls are barely moving? Neither candidate seems to be able to open up a broad lead. What does that tell you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the question of the moment, question of the week, question of the next 12 days. And part of my answer to that, Steph, will be I'm not sure the people within the Harris campaign, which is what I've been covering most closely this cycle, know the answer to that either. I think that at this point you would expect that there would be some kind of breaking away, that there would be something that would propel one candidate a little bit ahead of the other. And it just hasn't happened. And why is that? I mean, there's a few different reasons. Certainly one, the fact that we all know that this country is just deeply, deeply divided politically. And that is manifesting itself right now in this final stretch of the campaign. Two, people on the left and the right are concerned about high prices. That's something that Vice President Harris has tried to address with her economic policies and proposals, but that is certainly helping President Trump as he is working to argue that the Biden years and the Biden-Harris administration have made the country worse. I think a combination of those things and perhaps some kind of forgetfulness about the Trump years and the chaos of the Trump years are all playing into the fact that these polls are really close. And, you know, we've got about 12 days left. It's hard to say if those polls are going to go one way or if there's going to be any pulling out ahead in the coming days, or if it's just going to be really tight until the end.
Quick policy note, people are not happy with the price of things, but it's important to note that former President Trump has put forward absolutely no policies that would do anything to address inflation. In fact, his plans of tariffs and mass deportations would worsen it. Tia, more than 2 million people have voted early in your state of Georgia. That is a lot. But your paper is also reporting that a lot of voters in your state already do not believe that the election will be fair. What's going on down there?
Yeah, so it's a split. Of course, we know a lot of Republican voters have been fed the big lie. Donald Trump still continues to perpetuate the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen from him. So he continues to cast doubt, distrust in the election. And we know he's setting kind of the table so that if he loses, he could once again challenge the outcome of the election, say it was rigged, say it was stolen. But even some Democrats, when we poll them, say they're concerned, again, not because they think the election will be stolen from Donald Trump, but they're concerned Trump will try to overturn the result of the election, that Trump and his allies won't allow for a free and fair election. So you see fears on both sides of the aisle just about wanting the election to be fair. But again, for Democrats, it's more kind of the fear because they saw what happened on January 6th. Whereas for Republicans, it's a fear based on being fed false conspiracy theories.
All right, John, take us back to Nevada, because normally Donald Trump does not like early voting. He doesn't like mail-in voting. But early returns in your state show that Republicans have what has been quoted by Newsweek, an unheard of edge. What does that mean? Why is it happening?
Well, it's a very good question. The headline, of course, of why it's happening, Stephanie, is that they suddenly woke up and realized, you know, maybe we ought to use early voting to our advantage the way that the Democrats have in the past. As you know, Stephanie, because we've talked about this before, the so-called Harry Reid machine, which has survived beyond his death in 2021, banks all of these votes during early voting so that the Republicans can't catch up on Election Day. I have never seen what's happening now, which is that the Republicans actually have a lead of about 4%, Stephanie, statewide. And so they are already crowing about this. They're already, some of them at least, are saying that Nevada is in the bag. But it's very, very different atmosphere out there. A lot of the mail ballots down in Las Vegas, Clark County, have not been counted yet. And some of the Democrats still feel pretty confident that once those returns come in, that they'll be doing okay. But even the most optimistic Democrats I talk to, Stephanie, tell me they think if they win, it's a 5,000 or 10,000 vote race here in Nevada. It was only 33,000 last time. And then there's a lot of worries because Republicans here are doing their thing about filing lawsuits and trying to cast doubt on the election before it happens. If it's super close, Stephanie, I think that's going to be very, very dangerous for what happens afterwards. And Republicans, Stephanie, are even handing out to poll workers these cards that they're demanding they fill out, a checklist, including that they didn't see that the machines are connected to the internet. So the more things change, you know what I'm going to say next.
the more they stay the same.